Hey, thanks so much for joining us today. We're starting a brand new teaching series called Why Though? And in this message, I'm going to tell you some things that maybe you've been hiding about yourself that perhaps you should embrace. Some things that you've been running away from or trying to fix that maybe you should just be looking at and saying, oh, there's a reason for that. Stick around. My name is Drew, and I have the privilege and honor of being the lead pastor of Risen Church. And I'm so glad you're tuning into this today on YouTube. Hope you're having a great day, and I hope this helps in some way. So we're calling this Why Though, and here's my just quick elevator pitch as to why we're calling it Why Though. You are good at some things and not so good at other things. You care about some things deeply and not so much about other things. You were born in one decade and not another. You were born in one country and not another. You were born into one family and not another. Why though? Why is all of this stuff true about you? Why did you have access to this much money and not that much money growing up? Why were you in this school and not that school growing up? Why are you passionate about this stuff but not quite as passionate about that stuff? Why though? Why is all of that true? And the answer is this, and you're not going to be surprised to hear a preacher say this. I'm going to say some things today that you might be a little surprised to hear a preacher say, but this is not one of those things. Why though? Because God made you for a specific purpose. And in addition to the fact that I believe it's true that God made you for a specific purpose, I actually believe, and this is what we're going to get into a lot today, the purpose that God made you to fulfill is obvious. Maybe if we were to pause just long enough to ask why though, we might actually stumble into some answers. And in order to do this today, I would like to go to 1 Corinthians chapter 12, which is actually a letter that was written in the first century by a man named Paul to a church in Corinth, thus Corinthians. And I'm going to read this to you, and I'd like for you to just kind of consider what it means. It's a little wordy. His approach here is a little stylized, and there's some imagery to it, but we'll try to unpack that and just let it try to make some sense of this for us. 1 Corinthians chapter 12, verse 12, the human body has many parts, but the many parts make up one whole body. So it is with the body of Christ. Some of us are Jews, some are Gentiles, some are slaves, some are free, but we have all been baptized into one body by one Spirit, and we all share the same Spirit. Now, this is a huge idea when it comes to your purpose on the planet. Paul is essentially saying that every person who believes that Jesus is who he says he is part of one unified body, one system that is actually designed to work together to accomplish one task. And the thing about a body is that every part in a body has a role to play. That should be a huge weight off of your shoulders. If you've ever felt like there's just so much work to be done, there's just so many things that need to be done, well, the good news is you're not supposed to do all of it. You're supposed to do your part. You are one part of a body that is designed to accomplish everything that needs to be accomplished. When you look at a body and pause and just ask why though about any particular part, it becomes obvious really quickly what that part of the body is for. Even the parts that you might think like, I don't know about eyebrows. Like, what is the point of eyebrows? Well, let me show you a picture of someone without eyebrows. Now do you understand what eyebrows are for? Because we look crazy without them. Every part of your body has a reason, has a purpose, and it only takes a little bit of consideration. It only takes a moment of pausing and asking why though to begin to discover what the purpose actually is. And the same is true for you. As a person, as a part of the organism that is humanity, and more specifically, the organism that is God's church, you might find yourself thinking, oh, I have a function. If you take me out of the equation, something gets strange, something goes weird, something doesn't work as well without me. There you go. That's what Paul is saying. The purpose that God put you here to fulfill is obvious when you start to really consider it. Now, let's consider it. How can I know what I am here for? If you're asking, how can I know what I'm here for? This is how I would respond. And we're going to have a little bit of fun with this. Don't let me hurt your feelings on it. I'll try to redeem this at the end, but I'm going to say some things today in a way that maybe you've not heard them before. How can I know what I'm here for is too big of a question. This is why so many people struggle with purpose, because that question is so large. If you look at the world as completely yours for the taking, you believe that you can do everything, you're likely to end up doing nothing. It's too broad. So let's narrow it down. How can I know what I'm here for? Well, for starters, you are bad at most things. Now, don't let me hurt your feelings. I'm bad at most things too. But just think about it. Of all the things that you could be good at on this planet, all the things that people are good at, some people are good at, how many things are you actually good at? A few. And how many things are you not so good at? Most things. You are bad at most things. But that's not any reason to despair. In fact, I would suggest to you that this should be liberating to us. It would be overwhelming to be good at everything. Can we just pause for just a moment and just breathe a sigh of relief and thank God for making us bad at most things? God, thank you for making me bad at car stuff and foreign languages and flossing and digesting dairy. It would be overwhelming to have no limitations. If God dropped you in the middle of a field, and the field was just weeds and grass and trees in every direction, and then he just said, good luck finding your way out of here, you'd feel trapped. You'd feel limited. You'd feel overwhelmed by that. But God didn't do that. See, God kind of carved out a path. He didn't just put you in a field and say you could do anything. He made you good at some things and not so good at other things so that a path could begin to emerge. The reality is, for us, when it comes to purpose, our options are limited, and that is liberating. Now, I know what you're thinking. I don't know what you're thinking, but maybe you're thinking. Maybe eventually you would think if I didn't plant this here. Well, some people are really, really bad at something, and then they work on it and they get better, and that's how they find their purpose. That's what a lot of movies are about. Maybe I should just trudge through the weeds and just ignore the path. And I would say, yeah, there are some stories like that. 1 in a million, 1 in a billion. Every once in a while, somebody appears to be bad at one specific thing. They work on it, they get better, and that becomes their thing. I would only urge you to consider there are a whole lot more stories of people who are really good at something, devote their lives to that, and find happiness and purpose in doing what they were created to do really well to begin with. Paul writes another letter to this same group of people a few years after this first letter, and in it he actually talks about his own limitations and his own shortcomings and his own boundaries and his own path to discovering them. He says in 2 Corinthians chapter 12 verse 8, 3 different times I begged the Lord to take it away. What's he talking about? He calls it his thorn in his flesh. It's something that Paul is bad at and wishes he wasn't. Or some problem that Paul keeps coming back to that he wish he didn't keep coming back to it. And God says back to him, my grace is all you need. My power works best in weakness. So now I'm glad to boast about my weakness so that the power of Christ can work through me. In other words, God made me bad at most things as a gift. He's helping me to discover my purpose. He didn't just throw me in a field and say, do whatever you want. He actually sort of carved it out and said, you're really good at this. Move towards the things that you're really good at. You're bad at most things. Let that narrow some things down. Let yourself find some liberation, some freedom in knowing that. You're not expected to do anything and everything. You're kind of bad at most things. And that's such a gift. Number 2, how can I know what I'm here for? Well, you hate doing most things. It's still a bit of an exaggeration. You know, I'm using some flair here. I'm not trying to give you permission to just stop doing anything that you don't like doing. Stop trying to get better at certain things that you need to get better at. This is not permission to say, like, I mustn't be bothered with doing the dishes anymore because it does not put life into my blood. No, that's not really what this is about. This is a larger discussion than that. I'm only saying that you were made a specific way for a specific purpose. And I believe that we should begin to consider the path. Why though? Why are these things true about me? And the more positive way, perhaps, of considering this second question is essentially asking, what brings me joy? What work do I come alive when I'm doing it? And in this, we find a powerful and amazing gift that God has given us whenever it comes to our purpose. Your purpose is something you will love doing. That doesn't mean it will never be stressful. That doesn't mean it'll never be difficult. That doesn't mean there'll never be parts of it that you really have to work on in order to do well. What it means is that it will always feel like work worth doing to you. It will be something that brings you joy to do. Too often in church world, we've gotten caught up in thinking that if God asks me to do something, it's going to be something I hate. That doesn't align with the scriptures. It doesn't align with the gospel. It doesn't even align with the Old Testament. In Psalm 37 verse 4, it says this, take delight in the Lord and he will give you your heart's desires. You'll be fulfilled in his purpose for you. He gave you the desires that you have to begin with, and he is the fulfillment of them. When you pursue the purpose that he put you here to pursue, you begin to have the desires of your heart fulfilled. There's joy in it. There's satisfaction in it. And the third thing to consider, if you're asking, how can I know what I'm here for, is to consider, you don't care about most things. Now, again, I know I've already said this, but this is not a case for apathy. This is not an opportunity for you to get to say, don't care, not my job, not my prob, not my job, not my prob. That's not exactly what this is about. I'm only saying that you are passionate about some things and less so about others. You care deeply about certain things. Some things make you so righteously angry that you just have to be a part of solving them. Some things make you so happy to contribute to a cause. They bring you so much life and joy, and that may not be true for other people. And it's important whenever we consider this third part that we are all part of one body, we all have different functions. It's important that we not try to guilt other people into caring about the things that we care about with the same level of zeal that we care about them. You were made a certain way for a certain reason. I was made a certain way for a certain reason. But it's also important that we not shame ourselves for not caring as much about other things. Every time I see Sarah McLachlan come on my television singing to me about the sad puppies, the only thing I can think is, Sarah, it's a little heavy-handed, don't you think? Now, I know some people who are moved by that, who send money in every time, and they should, and I don't wish harm upon the puppies, but at the same time, that does not connect with me at the same level as other things do. So, what have we discovered here? You are bad at most things. You hate doing most things. You don't care much about most things. And that's maybe a fun way of looking at this, a fun thing to begin to consider. I'll be honest, partially, I only taught this message this way to make it memorable, to make it stand out from every other talk that you've heard about your purpose. And maybe that's something that could actually resonate with you. Maybe there's something about that you always thought, I'm supposed to hate it. If God asks me to do it, I shouldn't enjoy it. I should probably have to get way better at something I'm really bad at. I should probably be miserable while I'm doing it. And I'm probably supposed to care about a bunch of stuff that I just really don't care that much about. And I want to encourage you to consider that doesn't make sense. That's not a path carved out for you in the field of your life. And God cares enough about you to carve a path out. I want you to consider these questions, and these just sort of flip the 3 points. What am I good at? How can I know what I'm here for? Well, what am I good at? What do I love doing? What brings me to life when I get to do it? And what am I passionate about? Your why, though, is at the center of sort of the triangle that those 3 things create, right? What am I really good at? What do I love doing? And what am I really passionate about? Your why, though, is right in the middle of that triangle. And no one can really get to the heart of that, to the truth of it, but you, only you, can partner with God to discover your purpose, to begin asking these big, big questions. Fortunately, He didn't just throw you into a field with weeds and grass and trees in every direction. He carved out a path for you. He made it kind of obvious. If we're really, really honest with ourselves whenever it comes to a discussion of purpose. Now, this doesn't make it simple. This doesn't make it easy. This doesn't mean that you're going to walk away from your phone or your computer from this talk saying, finally, I know what I'm doing. I'm just saying, if we're really honest about it, what we begin to discover is that God loves us so much that our options are limited. We've got a path through this wilderness. And what a gift that is. If you enjoyed this today, please hit the like button. Leave a comment. Let's start a conversation down in the comment section. Subscribe to our page for more content every week. And then I'd love it if you would share this message with anybody that you know who may be struggling with purpose, or maybe you just think they would enjoy it.